Okay, so this is part 7 in a series entitled Heroku Architecture, Credential by Example. Um, and to find the rest of the videos, including this one, you can go to title of a Medium article of the same name. Okay, so if I scroll down, let's review what we did in part 6. Part 6 was the last video. We did a very simple workflow using a pipeline. The basic workflow essentially amounted to pushing the master, which then built a staging app, which then we can then promote to production. So that was it. And what we're going to do here in part 7 is talk about a slightly more advanced workflow involving pull requests and then merging the master, which goes to staging and then goes to production. And if you were to Google this, you could look up the Git workflow, not Git flow workflow, just the word Git and workflow, and it'll show you an example where you create these feature requests, create PRs, merge the master. That's the sort of flow. And so to enable this workflow, what we're going to do is we're going to use a feature called Review Apps, and we're going to talk a little bit, kind of some side effects of, or some pieces kind of related to that. We're going to talk about protecting GitHub branches, Heroku continuous integration, and then another level of branch protection in GitHub. So we'll go ahead and get started. And let me close this down. Actually, this is the right folder. I'll leave this open for now. Let's go to Heroku. And let's review again where we're at. So we have these two stages. We have staging and production, right? And there's a button here that says Enable Review Apps. So we're going to click this button, okay? And we will do it by example, but essentially this is allow us to spin up apps on demand based on pull requests. And so we can kind of check our code that's working before we actually commit or merge our code. So now one of the things that you'll see here is before you can use review apps, you have to create this file called app.json in your repository. And this tool here will walk us through creating that, like a little wizard. Now, at the highest level, app.json is used to, when you create an app previously, right, you had to basically define the slug, which was the code, but more importantly, you also had to supply the environment variables, and you had to supply any resources like the paper trail or databases or whatnot to have the app run. So that was all manually configured in the apps themselves. But in this case, these apps are dynamically built on the fly. So as a human, you're not going to get in there and be able to do those activities, the setup of the resources or environment variables. So essentially what this is going to do is say, hey, here's a config file that does all that on the fly for review apps. Okay, so, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to basically want to clone what this is saying, which app that you have right now do you want to kind of clone to be sort of the starting point for this sort of app configuration. So I'm going to use my staging app. Just so you know, it's generally not recommended you build it off of your production because you don't want to accidentally pull in production, security credentials or whatnot into your review apps, right? That's kind of would be a bad practice. So you want to use like your lower level staging environment. Okay, so let me create my app JSON. What this is going to do, this is just naming your JSON file, which is fine. And you can see that the things it's asking about is, for example, what stack is this going to run on? Well, and again, that's what's operating system. Because you're basically running an app, right? So we're going to leave it as Heroku 18, right, which is the default. We're not going to worry about scripts for now, so I'm going to skip that. We haven't been using scripts, so build packs we know about, right? And the build pack it detected was Node.js, which is the correct one, right? You can add secondary build packs, right? environment. Okay, so this is the environment variables that are going to exist in your review app. Now, one is we don't really want, we're going to have a different version of paper trail running here, so we certainly don't want to pull over the paper trail token. And you have a couple choices on how the environment variables are set, right, in building the review app. Right now it's defaulting to copying the development key, which I want to set true, right? But it's going to copy it at build time. So basically it's going to go to my parent app, which was the staging app, and look for the value of development and copy it over. And in this case, I always want these review apps to always have development, regardless of what's set on staging. So I'm just going to say copy now. Actually, I'll just be more explicit. I'm going to set the value here to true. Okay, so now this one always basically will have environment set to true. So it's formation. So this is going to tell you when your review app starts what dynos are going to start. In this case, it's just going to be the node, the web, and we only have one right now, so that's fine. And you can see that it's going to add on the paper trail add-on. Okay, that's fine. And then here is the generated app JSON that it's going to create. So let's kind of review it real quick here before we commit it. So there's the name, fine. There's no scripts. We're going to set the environment development flag to true. We're going to start up one web dyno. We're going to add paper trail when it starts up, and it's going to use Node.js as a build pack, and it's going to run it on Heroku 18. Okay, that's pretty much what we expect. So I'm going to say commit the repo. So what this is going to do is basically commit an app JSON into my master branch. And now that it has that, it says, okay, we're going to basically base this on the staging app, right? We want to create new apps on every pull request automatically. And if there some review apps are old, I want to delete them. And remember, your review apps also run dynos, which means they are going to cost, they're basically dynos, and which cost money. So this is not necessarily a free service, free feature. So I'm going to enable this. And okay, so this build, by the way, is because I committed that app JSON that was reflected here. Okay, so right now we're ready to go with our review app, and let's go ahead and walk through what a workflow of using a review app looks like. So what I'm going to do, okay, let's clean this up. I'm going to promote this up here, just so my environment is all clean. Okay, so I have my staging environment is the same as my production environment, and I have no review apps. Okay, so let's go to code here, and let's make a sample change in my app. So let's go here. Where's hello world right here? Okay, world review. Okay, let me save this. Okay. Oh, okay, I made a mistake here. Good. Okay, I need to check this out. I'm gonna not commit this. Git checkout dash dash star star dash star. Okay, I have a clean master. What I really want to do is I'm trying to do a workflow that involves a feature branch. So the key here is I need to create a feature branch. I'm going to call it get branch feature, right? Get branch feature, get checkout feature. I know there's a way of doing this with one command, but I've been lazy, not memorizing it. So I'm on my feature branch. Now I'm going to make my code change. Come in here, review, save this. Okay, so get status. Okay, so I've got a change, git add. Okay, so I've got my feature branch. Git push origin feature. Okay, so I've got a feature branch here. Go to GitHub. Branches. Okay, so here's my feature branch, and I can create a new pull request. Again, this is asking for a merge of feature into master, right? And that's it. So I should create pull request. Now, a couple things you'll notice here is once I added the review apps, this little section in GitHub got added in here. And this is basically, in a second here, this will auto update once it starts deploying. So right now, Heroku sees that I have a new feature branch here, right? But I said to auto deploy, it takes about 30 seconds or so to spin up the build process. So we're going to wait here for a second until this. Okay, what I'm going to do, rather than waiting on a video for 30 seconds, let me pause the video and wait till this thing starts auto building. Okay, and then of course the moment I do this it'll start, but I'm going to pause the video. Okay, I started to restarted the video here. So what actually happened, I had to go back and fix something. When I created that feature branch, I neglected to, before I created the feature branch, I neglected to pull down the latest version of master, which meant it didn't have the app.json file in my local copy of master. And then when I created my feature branch, it didn't also have a copy of the app.json. So this process right here that was trying to create the app was complaining that I didn't have an app.json in the branch, and so couldn't do a build, which makes sense because it didn't know what to build. So I had to go through the whole thing again and first pull master down, so I had the app.json, and then I did the PR. Okay, so now it's doing what I expected. You can see now I've got something here now. It's called a review app. You can have more than one of these, right? For every PR open, you would have one of these. Let's look to see what it looks like from GitHub. From GitHub, you can see that there's an extra section here. It says this branch has been deployed, and you can actually click on this right from GitHub and say View Deployment, and that's going to basically just launch your web, your dyno basically, and in this case it just says hello feature world feature now. So let's look at a couple things here. Let's look at this from the perspective of looking at it as an app, right? You can see it's an app. It looks like just any other app you have. It has it's got dynos, right? And it's running one dyno, right? It's got add-ons as expected, right? And it's just like another one. In fact, you could even do your commands like looking at the logs. You can actually go to, for example, here. If I can make this down here. So let me clear this. So I can actually do Heroku logs, right? You have to give it an app name. Heroku cert Larkin Tucker PR-10. Oh, I always get this. That is it. Okay, so you can see I could look at the logs of it, and here's my log output with a world feature in it. Okay, so it's just a full-fledged app. Okay, now let's just finish this off by merging our code. So maybe I've now looked at the review app, right? My pipeline. I looked at my review app. I'm happy, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, this is good enough to merge in the master. So I merge the pull request, confirm the merge, and then I delete my branch, right? So now I've fully deployed my code into master. Let's look to see what happens. So first of all, you notice it now takes down the review app because it's no longer relevant. And because I merged in the master from the previous video, I had an auto deploy on master of my staging app and see it's building. Right? And then once that's done, I can promote it up. Okay, so that's the main key concepts around review apps, what they're used for. It's basically to review your code before you merge the master. Now, one of the things that we want to, okay, so the next kind of topic is taking advantage of this feature. One of the things you might want to do is go into your GitHub account, and under branches, you can add a branch protection rule, which protects your master branch. So the idea is that you want to prevent people from directly merging to master, right? You want them to go through this review process where they have to create a review app first, right? So I'm going to say add rule, and I want to match it on master since that's the branch that I really want to protect, right? And I just want to, for now I'm not going to check any of these. We'll look at these, some of these later, right? And so I can say create. One thing, by the way, as an administrator myself, I can always still merge the master directly or push the master. It's only non-administrators are impacted. So this is not going to really impact me. But you know, if I had other developers, we want them to go through a pull request. Okay, so I'm going to put that. Okay, so I've got my branch protection on. You can see it's right here. Okay, that's it. So let me just clean this up here. So now let me promote this to production. Okay, so I've got the same code everywhere now. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is continuous integration, because it would have been, you know, as I create, right now my tests are only running locally, right? There's nothing that's running my tests when, you know, and anywhere except for relying on the developer's machine to run their tests. So I want to run tests somewhere so they can see that they're actually running and maybe see them in either here or in GitHub. So that's where continuous integration fits into the puzzle. So under the settings of the pipeline, which is here, right, there's an extra button here. It says enable CI run tests. So the key here is Heroku continuous integration runs tests on every push to a branch, any branch. Okay. Now there's extra charges for using it. Now, just one point of observation. I had to actually think about this a little bit. I'm more familiar with Travis CI, and they also have a feature where you can do tests against PRs, which test the current state of master, right, and the incoming merge together, combined, and runs the tests in that on that code base. And it doesn't look like Heroku supplies that feature. So this relies on the only testing the branch as it is before the merge, which and just so you know, once it gets merged to master, it's going to run the tests again there, but that would be after the merge happened, right? So I actually spent some time thinking about this. It's a little bit unfortunate because I would have preferred to also have the option to run tests on the pull request, right? Because then I know, you know, it's my incoming code and my current code running the test rather than just the incoming code before I merge. But that is what it is. We'll see some advantages of using Heroku CI over something like Travis. By the way, you can use Travis alongside Heroku. It works fine. That's actually normally how I'd run this myself. But there are some key reasons why you might want to use Heroku CI, and we'll talk about that shortly. So I'm going to just turn it on for now. So I've enabled it, right? And you can actually also set up environment variables for your tests, which I don't use any right now, right? So let's see what happens if I just do this and don't do anything else. So I'm going to go back to here, back to my pipeline. Nothing fundamentally has changed here, right? So let's go ahead and let's just do another PR and walk through another full flow. Okay. So if I go into get branch, get checkout, master, get branch, delete feature, get pull origin, master. Okay, trying to get my environment cleaned up here. Okay, so I've got my master now. It's got the new code on it. Let's go ahead and remove out that review. So I'm going to do another branch called get branch feature 2, get checkout feature 2. Okay, I'm on my feature 2 branch. I need to make a change. And I'm going to get rid of the world feature here. Go back to my world. I'm sort of undoing my last feature branch. And close that out. Get status. Okay, so there's my okay. Then I say get add, get commit, unrevert, and then we'll push up this feature branch. Okay. Okay. So I'm ready to go. Let's look at a couple things. So I haven't done a pull request yet, so nothing will happen here. But if I go to GitHub, okay, go to my branches, one thing you'll notice here, see this little yellow dot here? This actually means that some CI process is running right now against this branch. That's because I pushed up feature 2. That triggered the Heroku continuous integration to run. And you can actually see, you don't see anything here, but if you go under tests, you will see a new build happening. Now, just so you know, all this other red errors and whatnot I did here, I've been, in preparation for doing this video, I've been doing all sorts of learning, and so I couldn't clean out all this old history. So normally this wouldn't be here, and normally you wouldn't see all these other tests down here that I've been playing with. But you can see that this is the test right now that's running, or just ran, right? And let's see what it did. First thing it did was it created it creates an environment, right? And like a build pack, right? So it runs your build pack, right? And it does npm, because it detected node, it runs npm install. It actually ran the build process here, right? Compiled your code, and then it did a test step. So there's like 2 steps. There's a test setup, and then there's a test run. The test run, it looks like it auto-detected the fact that there was a test npm script, so it ran it, and it basically said that test always works, so that's why this passed. So then it was complete. Okay, so then because of that, you will notice also if I refresh my screen in GitHub, I should have a green check now under feature 2. So now I know that that feature branch passed its tests. So then I can go ahead and say, okay, I can safely now do a new pull request to master, right? And I create a pull request. And now, so right now you can see that the branch had a successful check. So it's showing an extra dot here, right? And this also means, if you look here, it's also now going to probably do kind of from the earlier stuff, it's actually doing a build of a review app too. So now I can know my tests are good. I can then maybe validate that my app does what I expected. So let's let this play out for another minute or so. And let's look at the app. So good tests. Maybe I'll just do a quick eyeball running it, and then I can then merge the code. It should be done in a minute. Okay, it just deployed. So the idea now is I can say, okay, now let me just validate. In this case, I'm going to open the app in the browser. Oops. What? Well, it deployed. Interesting. Wow, that's not good. I'm going to pause the video and troubleshoot this because, of course, this worked um, every other time. Open app. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to pause the video for a second, troubleshoot this. I'll tell you what I figured out. Okay, I just was being impatient. I just had to wait another 30 seconds, and then app was really deployed. So now I can see my hello world as I expected, and I could look at the logs too. I guess I could look at it here. View logs, and I can see the app started up as expected. And there was, let's see, I'm looking for, here's, I'm going to rerun my app here. There we go. Oh, there's my, okay, there's my world output, right? And then there is, looks like it has extra stuff. There's my request there. Okay, so let's say I look at this and I say I'm pretty happy with the status of the app, right? So I will go back here, right? I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and merge this, merge pull request, confirm merge. Now, and then I'm going to delete my branch. Now, because CI is running, if I go under pull requests, no, if I go back to my app, or my branches, you'll see now a yellow dot under master because now I just pushed changes into master. That triggers Heroku to then say, hey, in fact, you can see right now it's still running a test here, right? And you can also see under tests, you can see that, let me refresh the screen. Right. It's interesting. It's just a little bit distracting. It always shows the error, even though it's got successful passing tests after it. But oh well. So it's basically rerunning the tests, right, on the merged code, right? So this is post merge, and you can see it's successful. I can see on master that I've got a green dot, and if you go here, back to your pipeline, you will notice that it is passing its tests and it's deployed, and now the app is now running here under my staging environment, and I can promote this up to production. Well, in theory, you would validate it, so I would say, do my tests in staging, I'm happy, promote to production, promote, and then I'm back to a clean state again. Okay, so that was, again, that was basically enabling Heroku continuous integration and having sort of checks in your workflow for looking for tests passing. Okay, one thing you will notice here real quick, under the test, let's go back to the sample test it ran. So the test includes, there's a setup phase where it does both pulls all the pods, it pulls down all its dependencies and runs a build, right? And the tests it just ran my tests. But ideally, I would also like the linting to be checked, right? I already know the build worked because it's part of setup, but I would like to know that my lint, not only did my test run, but my linter ran. But because the default setting of this, of Node, the Node build pack is to run the tests, just test it, the npm tests, which is just my actual test, not my linter. So the way you fix this is, let's make a change to our app.json. So let's do this. I'll show you how to do this. Git branch, git checkout master, and clean up after myself. Git branch delete feature 2. Okay, so I'm going to do, okay, so what I'm going to do here is, because I can. I'm gonna make a change in my app JSON here and then just push it. Okay, and then we'll see what that does. Okay, so let's look at app JSON from earlier. Source. Okay, I'll make this bigger so we can see it. Okay, so I don't want to change most of these settings, but I want to add additional, I want to change up one of the scripts that is being run in the test and when I'm doing tests. Not so much, not during the review app phase. This is all about review apps. So what I can do here is I can add another section to this, and let's see if I get this right. I'm going to say environments. Okay, so you can actually, you think of this as the app JSON, the things at the root level are the default settings, and then depending on the environment, I can then override these values, the base values. So environments, this is our test environment. Okay, so this is not arbitrary. This is specific settings. So this is basically saying, in the test environment, I want to set scripts to be something different than an empty, right now it's empty. So I'm going to set scripts. I want to supply a new test script. So this, again, there's a test setup phase and there's a test script phase. So now before it was just running before it was just running npm run test. That's basically, this is the current state, right? The default behavior is to run just npm run test. But before I run my tests, I want to make sure that I have a clean lint too. So I'm going to say npm run lint and. So what this basically means, in order now when Heroku continuous integration runs the tests, instead of just running the default npm run test, it's going to run the command that's here because it's in a test environment, and it's going to run both the linter and the test script. The build would have already happened because that was the default behavior is to run the build as part of the test setup. Okay, so I think if this is right, we can validate this. So let me go back to my command line. Get status. Let me add this. And commit. What is this? This is new test. Now, since I'm pushing straight to master, I should do a test again. Again, normal developers couldn't push to master. Oh, Lord. Oh, I forgot to pull down the latest change before I did this. Okay, how do I get out of this mess? Oh. Okay, hang on. Pull. I think I can get out of this best by just pulling down, create a new merge. Okay, so now I've got, it basically corrected my server.js. Now I can do git push origin master. Okay, oof. Sometimes you can get off track with git and find yourself in a bad place. Okay, remind myself always to pull pull latest version master. So what this should have triggered now is a new test run against master because I just merged codes to master, and you can see it's doing that, right? It's already this one, right? So it's doing the test setup right now, which again is installing dependencies and doing the build. Let's just watch this. This takes a minute. Okay, I think we're almost done. Okay, so the tests. So now you notice that before it had run the test. Now it's actually running lint against it, and then it's running the test. Oh, it was so fast. So it ran lint, and then it ran the test, and both passed. So then the combined run was successful. Okay, so that's the way that you can customize your the tests that Heroku um, continuous integration runs. And again, that was by we had touched the app JSON, right, and which we had created previously for the review apps, but we added a new section saying, hey, we're in a test environment, run this particular script. Okay, and that is that. There's one more thing we're going to look at here, and this is another branch protection setting. So I'm going to go back into my repository, GitHub. We go to settings, and I'm going to look at my branch settings, and I'm going to edit this. There's a protection on master right now. I want to edit it, okay? And I'm going to look at this more carefully. So right now I'm not worrying about reviews, right? But I do want status checks. So this is saying, hey, make sure that I run my status checks before merging, right? And which basically means it better that the branch must have passed before it continues. And then I'm going to be extra safe by having to make sure the branch is up to date, so that when the merge when the test actually ran, they were running on the sort of expected merge at that moment, the final result of the master versus this. And then I'm going to check this box and say that this is basically, that's the continuous integration Heroku merge, right? So now let's just walk through the last time here, right? See if I can. Are we all good? Okay, save changes. I think I already saved it earlier. Well, I'm not necessarily going to walk through the whole thing, but let me just kind of mentally walk through what I just did there. So let's say you made a new branch, right? And you introduced an error that would cause a failure, right? You push it up, right? That test would, and then you start to create a PR, right? So that you don't even realize it. You create a PR, and that PR is sitting there. Now the button to merge it, the tests are still running, so you can't push the button now to merge the code because it has to wait for a successful test, right? Now, when that branch test finally succeeds, right, then the green button to merge code would be enabled. Or if it failed, that you would never be able to hit the merge code because you have to have a passing test before you can merge the code. So that's the extra branch protection feature we added. I just don't want to go through the whole routine of doing another whole PR to illustrate that. But that's what the point of that whole activity was, is to protect your, basically have as much confidence as you can before you merge code. You run your tests, and you actually can run the code itself. Okay, that is the entirety of this section. So I'm going to stop the video.